City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded February 7, 2024.
Good evening, everybody. It is officially 6:30. I am happy to call the February 7th, 2024 Board of Parks Commissioners meeting to order. Director Kramer, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Broderick?
Here.
Freckman? Here. Disher? Here. Ledusky?
Here.
Alder Kiemer?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
O'Connor? Here. Shabilsky? Here. Alder Short? Here. Sorensen?
Here.
And Wynn is excused. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Agenda item number 2 is an approval of the January 3, 2024 meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve. Liz, is there a second? Matt? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve those minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Agenda item number 3 is a presentation by Trent Bannock from the UWSP Forestry Department. So Trent, if you want to go ahead and grab the podium, introduce yourself, and we would love to hear what you have to say.
Perfect. All right, so, went away. It's a good start.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you so much.
That's it.
You need a moment?
While we're waiting for it, Trent was an intern that we had hired at the city for the forestry department, and he was to review tree and sidewalk conflicts. I think I worded it.
Go to the podium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can do it.
Go ahead.
Too. Yeah, so I'm Trent Bannock. I'm currently a student at UWSP studying urban forestry. And this past summer, I actually worked for the Stevens Point Forestry Department as an intern looking at the conflict between trees and sidewalks. So yeah, you can go. I tried to take those effects off, but they stayed on. So a little bit of background on the subject. So urban forestry practices are on an upward trend across the nation. In an effort to further connect our communities with nature, we're trying to enhance and expand our current urban forests through parks and overall canopy cover. Trees offer a plethora of benefits, and we're trying to give public the most possible access to these benefits. But the issue is when we bring in these trees, trees aren't necessarily used to growing in urban confined environments. So when we bring them in, a lot of times there's root conflicts, there's potential branch failure conflicts, things that happen in their natural environment. And when it usually really isn't an issue, but when we bring them into the urban environment, it is an issue. So, yeah. So we need to kind of learn to cope with these things and minimize them in order to have a happy, healthy urban forest. So going into this project, I kind of had some questions that I wanted to answer along the way. I wanted to figure out if trees were always to blame for sidewalk damages, because well, they're really easy to blame for these damages. We plant trees along sidewalks. They have root system, everybody knows that. So when there is damages and trees are in the vicinity, oftentimes people jump to conclusions and blame trees for these issues. So I really wanted to see how much damage they're actually causing. I also wanted to look at specific sites where there was tree and sidewalk conflicts, and I wanted to find commonalities between those sites to help future mitigate issues and prevent them. And I also wanted to look into if there were potential or alternative practices that we can be using to save time and money along the way. So what did I do? The city develops a list of sites where sidewalk sections need to be replaced every single year. About half of these are contracted out to be replaced, and about half of them are done by the city. So what I did is I wanted to go to so there was actually 360 different sites where sidewalk sections were being replaced this year. And I went and I visited all 160 of those sites to see if there was any tree cause conflict at that site. So I looked at like what types of damages were at those sites, whether there was lifting, if there's a tree in the vicinity there, and if it was, I deemed it to be tree caused. I jotted down the species of that tree, the size of that tree, whether it be the DBA or like the diameter of that tree, the distance from the sidewalks in which that tree was planted, and then if it was a city or a private tree. But for this project, we mainly wanted to focus on the city tree side of things. So what I ended up finding after I visited all 360 of these sites was that there were 39 sites throughout the city where a city tree was involved with a sidewalk replacement. That's about 11% of total sections replaced were caused by a city tree. And of those 11% of 39 sites, there were 80 slabs that were marked for replacement, but only 50 of those were actually caused by tree roots. So to dig into that a little bit deeper, of those 39 sites where a city tree was involved with a root conflict with the sidewalk, 16 of those sites were either silver maple or caused by silver maple or a tree that was planted within 3 feet of the sidewalk. And these are actually preventable instances because now with current urban forestry practices, we aren't planting silver maples next to sidewalks anymore. They have a really vigorous shallow root system, so they tend to cause a lot of issues. And then also we are now planting within the center of the boulevard because that provides the tree the maximum amount of space to grow and flourish without conflict. So there are further mitigation options to help with this issue with trees and sidewalks. We obviously want to avoid those high-risk plantings, whether it be those shallow root system trees and where we're planting those trees in proximity to the sidewalk. Another thing that we could start to incorporate, which we haven't yet, would be root barriers. And what root barriers are, it's basically like a plastic sheet that can be placed in between the sidewalk and the tree to prevent the tree roots from growing up under the sidewalk and causing damages. And it is super effective, but it may not be practical for like the whole entire city because that would take a lot of time and money to incorporate. But if we focus on initially on like those high risk sites where there is like recurring damages due to the roots from one particular tree, it could definitely help the situation. One other way that we can help to prolong the life of sidewalks is utilizing sidewalk grinding. And what sidewalk grinding is basically a lot of times when these roots go up under the sidewalks, it pushes up sections of sidewalks and it kind of creates a lip, or since it pushes one, it creates a lip, and that's a potential like tripping hazard, so it's not something we want to have. And a lot of times what we're doing is we're just going and replacing these sections right away. But instead what we can do is we can utilize the sidewalk grinder to actually grind down that lip and prolong the life that sidewalk may have, and that saves time and money. I actually went down to Whitefish Bay and I met with their city forester, Pat McCarthy, and asked what they did with their tree and sidewalk conflicts, and they actually utilize sidewalk grinding a lot more down there. They have a very mature urban forest, so they have a lot of issues. And what they'll do is they'll actually let these sites where there's these lips occurring, they'll let those kind of pile up throughout the year. And then what they'll do is they'll take a couple days throughout the summer and they'll go down and grind down all of these lips in order to, instead of replacing them, and that helps save a lot of money. So in conclusion, there's actually very minimal sidewalk conflicts or sidewalk city tree conflicts in our city, and most of these situations can actually be prevented with our new and current forestry practices. But overall, an urban forest without any conflict is literally impossible. There's always going to be some sort of conflict, but the way that we maximize the benefits of our urban forests and minimize these conflicts is what makes for a happy, healthy urban forest. So, yeah, that's what I got. Any questions?
Any questions?
I'm kind of fascinated by the sidewalk grinder thing.
Yep.
It seems pretty cool. And like, what does something like that run for a city? Like, would it be a good investment for either forestry or like streets or something?
I think we currently have one, don't we?
Do
Todd?
we?
Yep, the city street department does have them. I have to talk to Luke and Chris to see how often it's used.
Okay.
And then I'm not real clear on it, because we talked about trying to get Trent to use it and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
during his internship, but that part just didn't work out.
Okay. I mean,
There's a little more communication that we just have to, more dialogue we have to have with them
Yeah.
to get that.
Todd, as you're taking questions, you're going to be up there anyway. Would you mind going to the podium? That way we can capture everything on the broadcast then. Thank you.
So yeah, that's something that I was hoping that with the sidewalk grinding, when Trent was here this summer, we were hoping to work together to have him try to use it and discuss with the streets to see what their plan is for it. I think they just kind of do it for filler work, but I don't know that for sure. But that's one of the ways that we can maybe minimize, further reduce, the replacement of the sidewalks. And Wausau has been incorporating in their contracts about the last 2 years in new reconstruction areas, putting those root barriers down. So about 2 weeks ago, I reached out to their city forester up there. I got the specifications. I shared that with our project engineer here at the city. And when they install those this summer, he expressed interest. We're going to go up there to take a look at putting those in. What it is, it's 18 inches deep and about 2 feet in length. And then there's these ribs in it, so when the roots hit that, they hit those ribs and it deflects the tree root down, so it goes down and under. And I just want to see what the efficacy and see if it's worth it. And it was something I always thought maybe with a grant that we could I could apply for to try that in a new, on one of our reconstructed sites, like I think they're doing Walker and Vincent Street this year. I thought that might be a good area, but that's for another talk.
Other questions for Trent?
Oh, just a quick aside, thank you. In terms of the sidewalk grading, they actually did that on my street on Lincoln Avenue this past year. So I had never seen it before either. So, I mean, yeah, it's on.
No, I mean, we just had a section of our sidewalk replaced last summer, and it was, maybe a half-inch lip, and I'm like, oh, man, that would have been nice.
It prolongs how long it would take before it would have to be replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm not real sure. I got to somehow figure out how to broach that subject with them, because we've offered in the past, with maybe helping with that, if that would help mitigate some of the tree damage.
I'll just add, great report. Trent was a great member of our team for the summer, and being able to have the resources that Trent brought along, and also, this report to be able to quantify some of the things that we talk about internally, but that Todd doesn't necessarily have the time to get his own staff on. I just want to give Trent kudos, not only for his efforts working for the department for the summer and for as a seasonal employee, but again, these reports will long live after even his term of employment. And just wanted to say, appreciate both your time, Trent, for coming this evening when your term working for us has kind of passed, but also your efforts over the summer. And then obviously Todd's initiative of always adapting our forestry practices. He mentioned about where we've moved to the middle of the boulevard, changing some of the species that we plant alongside the street trees. They're continually evolving, and that's certainly in partnership with the talented professionals we have, but also these young, fresh minds that we bring into our department every year. So thanks again, Trent, for all your time on this.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
So, Dan, just a follow-up to that, then where will this report reside if folks have access, or so folks may have access to it?
Yeah, so this is typically something that we'll sometimes post on our Parks Department webpage. So this will likely, now that we have it, it's been presented, we'll put it there. This is also recorded with the city meetings. So at any time, if there's a question about it, we can refer back to this video recording on the city website too.
Very cool. Thank you. Trent, thank you. Todd, don't go anywhere.
Yep, no, I won't.
Well, actually, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and it is a Forestry Division operational update presented by Forestry Superintendent Todd Ernster.
Hi again. I just want to kind of let you know what our staff has been doing. Our forestry staff, Paul Zeman and Jonathan Hankins, they've been pruning the street trees up and down Main and Clark Street. I'm sure you've probably seen them. They're working on that part. Ken Wanta, he is concentrating on doing a lot of our young structural tree pruning. He prunes every tree that we've planted in probably the last 7 or 8 years. He goes through town and he goes down the list one by one, and he takes care of the low branches, trying to get a nice central leader. And he's probably done that for the last 10 years, and it's really going to pay off long after he's gone. So it should reduce a lot of future pruning, future tree failures. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, I guess. It's really paid dividends. The Streets Department has had at least 2 to 5 employees helping us this winter because there's been no snow, with the exception for about a week. They've been helping remove a lot of oak wilt trees, other dead trees we've had in the parks, and some smaller street tree removals. They've also helped with a lot of alley clearance and street clearance, like along West River Drive. So it's helped free our staff up
so we can concentrate on other street tree pruning projects, and it's also helped them out too. So that's been very, that's one of the benefits of having a warm winter, I guess. The Streets Department has been working over at Graholski Park, removing a lot of trees for the updates, or the, what do you want to say, I'm having a brain fart. They're clearing out the areas that we need to have done so we can move on with the project. So basically, everybody at the street department, or the Parks Department, I think, has helped with that. Stephen McKay and Jason Ayer have helped a lot with measuring DBHs of every one of our street trees in town. We have about 8,000 street trees, so that's been a couple-year project in the making, but we're making headway on that. And I'll get to why we're doing that in a minute. Our contractors is Tree Fellas. They started working 2 days ago. Actually, I think they were on Lincoln Avenue. They were probably
very busy.
Yeah. And they're working on some street tree pruning just to help us out get caught up with that, and they're also doing some of the larger tree removals. Our 2023 Wisconsin DNR Urban Forestry Grant, we're just about done with that. We injected, part of that grant, we received the product and the equipment to inject elm trees, so we're going to do about 10 elm trees a year. And it's a 3-year rotation, so we picked 30 of the biggest elm trees we have within the boulevards. Or I shouldn't even say just even the boulevards within the city on public land, and we're going to inject those and do that ourselves. So there's a cost savings with that, because like everything else, we were contracting it out and it was getting more and more costly. We purchased an air spade, and what that does, it's like a high pressured hose that helps blow the bark as it builds up around the base of the trees to kind of knock that down so you can keep the root flare exposed. And also I foresee that when the street department takes up a sidewalk slab, when they want to cut the roots that are kicking the sidewalks up, you can make a much cleaner cut. It'll make their jobs easier because you just take it and just, you blow everything away. Also part of that grant, we were able to plant Smith and Washington Avenue. That's all done, and the part that is left out of the grant is we're going to redo our street tree management plan. And Wachtell Tree Service out of Milwaukee has that part of the contract. And we didn't get that done this year because we've been trying to update our Microsoft Access tree inventory. That's where all the 8,000 trees are right now. It's in an Access program, and we're trying to put that into a GIS software. And to say it's been frustrating is an understatement. It should have been done 2-3 years ago, but it's just because of personnel changing and different software and asking another department to always help with stuff. I just can't wait for this to get done. So I think we'll have it done this year. And part of the management plan also, it'll evaluate our program. And in order to really evaluate the health and where our street trees sit, we should have our DBHs, the size of the trees, up to date. And a lot of those sizes haven't been remeasured since 1995. So it's kind of fun when something says 2 and it's always up to 15, 18 inches now. So that should be finished this year. And I'll be they'll be coming here to give a report. That's part of their contract. They're like I mentioned, there's going to be reconstruction on Maria, Walker, Vincent streets. There's some good-sized trees in front of Pacelli and along Vincent Street. Vincent Street's a very narrow boulevard. So I'm trying to work with our streets department and our utilities to protect those trees that we have in those boulevards so they're not excavating farther back, that they're not banging into the trees. So that's something else that we're working on. They'll also be working on Bliss, Prairie, and Mason Streets, but there isn't too much in regards to street trees over there. Something that I'm going to explore, the Wisconsin DNR has another grant. It's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. There's going to be $4 million available for urban forestry programs for underserved communities, and a good chunk of Stevens Point will fall into that. So there's a webinar on it on Friday, so I'll find out more about that. So I have some ideas with that, and just a matter of how much I want to bite off on it and to apply for with it. So that's something that I'm working on and talking to a couple other departments with. I can't talk without bringing up tree planting, right, Bob? So I'm working on my spring tree planting. This is always the fun part. I'm going to try a couple different tree species. I mainly do this so I can pick on Bob a little bit here. Abies, Lasiocarpa, variety Arizonica.
Okay.
It's an Arizona corkbark fir, so.
Yeah. At least the one I have, my property is a beautiful tree.
Oh, you have one? I thought I had you. Well, I won't swear here, but. What's it called, Todd? It's called an Arizona corkbark fir. I didn't remember, you didn't point that one out.
I'm not sure about the variety, but that's the species.
That's supposed to be the hardy of that one there. I didn't know you had that one. Shoot, that you took my steam away. All right. And then we're going to be planting some more striped maple, chestnut oak. This one I know you had was silver bells. I found that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm only picking that one because you had it.
About the middle of May, it's a real star. So highlight.
And then Fort McNair horse chestnut musclewood. So those are just some, and we got a whole wide variety of other trees that we're going to be planting. So that's what we got going on, and I always kind of chuckle when somebody asks, what does the forestry department do during the winter? I think it's probably busier than during the summer. So anyhow, that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
You're talking about elms that obviously had persisted since the heavy. How many of those are trees that had just the regular elm that had been there before we started losing elms? And are there any of these hybrids and these new things in this mix?
Nope, the only ones that we're treating are just the true American elms that have been here since long before I've been here.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, but we are planting a bunch of different hybrids and American elms that are supposed to be highly resistant. Not a whole bunch of them, but just to keep our diversity up, and they're fun to plant, so.
Other questions for Todd?
Okay, thanks.
Good work. Thanks, Todd. All right, move on to agenda item number 5, which is awarding of Project 24-01 Groholski Park Development Project, contracts A and A1 for site construction and granite trail construction to Farner Excavation. Director.
So as you recall, when we took the property from the Groholski family, originally the actual deed and the transfer said that within 5 years we had to complete the phase 1 of the construction. So what's before you tonight is kind of a full circle culmination of what we set out to do back in 2020. We did get incredible interest. This is the most bids we've had on a project since I've been here, going back actually to when I first got in the field here a little over a dozen years ago. It's the most I've seen on a site excavation too. So I don't know if that's just that we were that early in January, or if it's that we were starting to see some more interest or maybe a little less work out there. Regardless, if you look at the variance between the high bid and the low bid, we had quite a delta in terms of the difference. So we're happy to report this is well under budget, and even with the 15% contingency, it looks like we'll be able to get this thing rolling, and hopefully that park will be completed by August. So Farner's a local contractor. We've worked with them before, so we do recommend award and include that 15% contingency should we come up with something else that we unforeseen in the amount of $200,000.
All right. Questions for Director Kramer?
No, I was going to move to approve.
We got a
the award
motion?
to
Second. And there's a second. Is there any further questions or discussion?
I guess I can add, just so everyone knows, that we broke this contract out in 2 pieces because the solar installation is a specialty product and specialty item. So the earthwork contractors would have had to sub that and mark it up. So that's why it's broke out. So this contract will be after our crew completes the removals of the area that we're creating the green space. They'll do all the excavation. They'll create the asphalt parking lot, the 10-stall lot, and they'll pour the concrete and create the trail. And then after they're done with that component, that'll allow, if the next contract's awarded, that contractor to come in and set all of the solar arrays.
All right. Any additional questions? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second to accept the proposal as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And we'll move on to, as Dan mentioned, number 6, the awarding of the project for solar canopy and electrical construction, Northwind Solar. Dan?
So this is really a unique opportunity for us. We're really fortunate to have MREA here to the east. They've been a great partner in terms of some educational components for us. So ultimately, we saw their shelter, and a couple members of our staff, one who's actually here, Stephen McKay, have brought it and said, hey, we've seen this. We were out at their energy fair. Has anyone else looked into it? We were able to get a site tour of it, and we started conversations with the foundation that actually developed the product. And then by partnering that organization with the landscape architect and engineers on our end, we were able to get a specification created and work with, basically local conversations to get a bid document that allowed the local solar company to bid on it. So what'll happen here is it'll be the first of its kind in our region for the parks and the park system. I'm not aware of, Colliard has not installed one in a municipal park in the state either. So that's awesome. We're pretty excited about that, having it here. Certainly renewable energy is what we're all about, and this is kind of our second step forward after the Saramer Park initiative that we've got rolling. So you'll see a solar roofed structure, so it's not panels on top of a roof, it's actually the roof itself, and then a single bay car charging station, which will be free to the public, will run off that solar energy. We will sell back net metering any excess energy during the high summer months. As you can imagine, if we do have some cars being charged in the winter, we'll still be on the grid because the solar might not have enough to be able to run it in the winter. All depends upon what we're getting for energy. But anything when we're accessing or creating excess energy, that will go back on the net metering system. So we did get a couple bids on this, but the local bid was Northwind Solar. And again, with the contingency in it, we're still well under budget. So we're happy to bring this into the park system, and we're hoping to show this off once it's done. And we do recommend award to a very qualified contractor who's working in our area here with Northwind Solar out of Amherst.
Make a motion to approve.
Alder Keener's made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Disher has seconded. Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept this as proposed. Are there any additional questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the bid as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Dan. And we will jump on to agenda item number, I believe it's 7, and that will be the proposed gift cards.
So this is really, ultimately, when we went to an online payment system, a few years ago already, I think 2020 is when we first rolled that out. We've always had this ability and not really got into it where we can, if somebody can buy a gift card, we can load it onto their account balance and they can use it at a later time. We've always had the technology, haven't had a ton of requests. More as of late, we've had people asking around the holidays, around their grandparents heading into the summer, if they could do that. So Emily on our team and Ann talked about, is there a way to do it? They worked out all of the logistics from a computer programming system, but we wanted to spell out the terms about not refunding that back, or someone buying something in, say, 2024 and asking for the money back in 2026. So this policy is just cleaning up the language, saying that there's not a cash value to it, that it's not refundable, but it's putting in a policy that we're going to move forward with gift cards. There will be no cost to us, and it's a really nice user option for people to do that if they'd like to. Right now, we're averaging probably somewhere between 5 to 7 of these requests per year. I don't expect that to balloon, but it is a nice user convenience for those that would like to utilize it. So staff is recommending approval of that policy.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion for Mr. Disher to accept the proposal. Is there a second?
Second.
I missed it. Is it Sean? All right, Sean. Any additional questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of the proposal as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. And moving on, director's report.
So we do I have a lengthy director's report tonight, just because we've got quite a bit going on this time of year. As you can imagine, a lot of the things that happen during the summer and throughout the year, are planned during the winter season and in the off season is what we kind of call it. The first thing I want to make the Park Commission aware that's not before you because it's a financial item. The Finance Committee next week will be getting a memo when the packet comes out, likely tomorrow, asking for additional funding for the KB Willett Arena project. This is what it boils down to. The soil conditions of that property right next to the building required the footings to go in 20 feet deeper than originally bid. And it was just that the bedrock, the initial 2 soil samples that were taken, estimated 20 feet based on what they saw. When they actually drilled to hit the tension rating to carry the load of the basement, they had to go to 40 feet to get to bedrock. So that drove about an $80,000 change order. On a $2.7 million project. So it's a big number, but in the complexity of the project, we had contingency planned in the fundraising. Fast forward to where we are now, where we're about to open this building, the facade of the exterior called for new paneling to go on both the east and south wall. The existing building built in 1980, we discovered there's some structural elements that they didn't plan for a new facade. It was planned for just the real basic sheeting that's on it. And the vapor barrier on the bottom of the walls also letting some moisture into the basement finished spaces. So when we started to open the walls up, we found it, another unknown condition, and that's driving a $70,000 change order. We hit a couple other little snags that came up in the project in terms of when we opened the office ceiling grid to add on to the office. There's a material that was sprayed on the undercoating of the deck in 1980, the roof metal, and that's considered flammable because it was not a material that, this is pre-building code and some things, so we're required to basically paint over it with a flame retardant product that won't allow it to combust. So there's a couple things that we couldn't necessarily plan for. So the long and the short of it is some of these costs are, if you add it all up, was in excess of $185,000. We're requesting funding from the Finance Committee for up to $150,000. We do not anticipate needing the whole thing, but because we're so close to completion, if we get a wall opened up, we can't really pause it and say, Finance Committee, the next month, we need $5,000 more. With that said, you saw it tonight, we're $100,000 under budget on Groholski for borrowed funds. So in working with the comptroller, the recommendation is asking for funding up to $150,000. However, the comptroller is planning to reallocate if the Finance Committee agrees and is okay with it, and the council, so it's really an up to $50,000 ask of actual extra dollars. And as a project team, we don't believe we're going to need it. We think it's going to come in better than what we're forecasting. But again, because we're so close, and once you start digging into the walls being opened, we have to get them closed back in. So it seems really bad, but I don't mean that. If you actually read the memo, and I encourage you to, the full ask, if it would be completed, is still about 17% of the full project. And that would include a future ask during the 2025 capital budget process of replacing the roof and the facade on the press box. So this is a long-winded way of saying, if you get time to read the memo, please do for finance, but it lays out an ask immediately to finish what we've already bid and completed, and it's also letting the council know that come the 2025 capital budgeting process, there is one more lingering issue of existing infrastructure that's leaking on the roof that we are going to fall in line with the rest of the process of normal budgeting so that we don't butt the line of other projects, but we don't want to hide it or not say this is an issue so that everybody knows about it. So it doesn't come here because we don't have the purview of the financial aspects of it, and it's basically finishing what we've already done. And again, overall, it's a $5 million project. So the actual number in comparison to that is relatively small. $50,000 is a lot of money. I don't mean to undersell it, but in the grand scheme of what we're doing, it's not as much. So that will go to Finance Monday. If they approve it, it will go to Council the following Monday, and then those improvements, you'll see the rest of that building facade completed likely over the next 30 days. We're hoping to get occupancy of that building, of the interior, sometime around the second week of March. So we're very close interior. And you'll see, I'm gonna email it to the full council, and I'll put the Park Commission on this too. We do have a time-lapse video of the entire project for the building and the football field combined into 4 minutes. It's pretty unique to see kind of the whole thing in the full transition of how that came together. So if there's questions after you read the memo, certainly reach out to me. And I hope it's still to have the full Park Commission go through that building when we're ready to take occupancy. And we're also going to invite all the council members that they'd like to see it prior to the meetings to come take a look. It's complex because it's so much more than just the team room with the basement finishes in the field and everything else, as you all know. The second item on the Saramer Pavilion project update, I just wanted to share that contracts are finalized on that, and we did actually Alderperson Keemer and I met with Ellis Construction a week ago, I think is what it was. So we're on track, we believe, to have that building done for Labor Day is what we're shooting for a goal. So we're just finalizing some of the signage package related to the donors. on the building, and then we actually have another meeting set up for the hopeful plaque and kind of marker for the Emerson portion too. So there will be an update coming back to this committee, over the next few months probably. But where we're at right now is they hope to get out for bid on that project here in the next probably 60 days or so, and we'll see things happen. Just so you know, actual construction might only be, say, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, depending, but there'll be breaks in it because they might sequence different trades in as it goes. So you probably will see a construction fence around the site where the building's going to go. You'll see a lot of things happen for a while, then it might be paused for a short period, then they'll pick it back up. So, so it could be, a few months of construction or several months, but actual work would only, equate to probably 4 to 6 or 8 weeks. On the winter sports area, self-explanatory slightly, but I just wanted to share, we hit, one of the worst years we've ever had for warm weather. The winter sports, our crew and the streets department, they helped haul snow in for a whole week, and we were able to open the sledding hill for basically 5 days. It was the one weekend and a few days going in. So we made the best of it, and again, very helpful with our crew and the streets crew to make that happen. But now, even if we've got a large event, the moisture issue in the water we have at the bottom of the hill, it's an uphill climb to think we might be able to open again, but we'll continue to monitor. We did put out a release to the community saying we're not doing the downtown rink. We had Polkas on Ice and things asking if it could and what the last date was. So just to let them plan, we said it's not happening. And the sun rays are getting so bright now, even if we got a stretch of cold, we might not be able to establish it. So we'll monitor, but it's not looking good. We did get it open. Gerke was packed when we had the ice rink. People were using it every day. So we got a really, really short stint of winter activities. But the hiking is fantastic this time of year, I'll tell you right now. So if you get on some trails, go ahead. I also wanted to update you on the Piffner Park contamination issue that we've been working through for the last 4 years. Where this is at, we've not really had much traction as we were working through the results that were found from some of the soil sampling and waiting on DNR correspondence. Where we're at right now is we actually have the areas of impact, which are primarily outside the cultural commons. They're on the south side in what I'll call the swale area between the pond. And then there's a small area inside the cultural commons in the lowest spot in front of the canoe. Where we're at is that Stantec has been the city's consultant trying to work through the recreational standards of contaminant cleanup and what they were going to require us to do. We've reached a point where we're submitting a document to the DNR asking them if it's okay to proceed and if a remedial action plan essentially. And the primary components of that is just adding clean material on top of a fabric. No deconstruction of anything in the actual garden itself. The reason that document's not in front of you is that it's basically the preliminary request sending them to them. If they sign off on that document, then that's something that certainly gets shared and we'll move forward with that. These things take time. Every time we submit something for review, it seems to take 60 days, 90 days. So that's why this has gone on for 4 years as when we first were alerted to it to where we are today. But we're making progress, and it looks like we'll still be able to protect what we've done. It's safe for the public, and we can take care of the areas that need to be addressed with clean material on top of what we have versus having to dig out a bunch of materials and remove it. So very preliminary, but that's where we sit on that process right now. There'll likely be, if it's approved, then some funding put in for 2025 to actually complete that portion. On the McDill Disc Golf Course, if you've driven by Patch Street, you'll see there was large piles of black dirt that were up by the road. All of the regrading has taken place and the dredging project is done. Our component in that project is we own the property, and it's a park in aspect of that's what the site's used for, but it's been left where it's not dedicated parkland in case any sort of development or something else was to take place or another department needed it for something. But we really manage the property because it's used as a park currently. They've graded it at our request, added some topography for the disc golf group, so it was great. We were able to get some of their members down there, and they added a couple berms to make it better and playable for them. What we're waiting on now is they're going to seed the area and try to get some grasses and stuff established for this summer. At that point, likely late summer is when they'll put the goals back in. That course will open back up. Right now, there's also no road down for the actual weed harvesting that happens there by the Lake District. They're going to put the road back in for us. So they dug it out when they put the large storage facility there with all of the berms. But when they got the black dirt seeded, we did request the road to go back in, and they have confirmed that they'll put gravel back down. So that dirt should be out of there very soon. They're moving that to another site, and then you should see that take shape here over the spring. And we hope to actually add 2 or 3 more goals there. The plan is, if you look at the map, the northeast corner corner the utility department used to use for several things. They're not using it anymore, and they stated as long as they can protect their right if they have to use it in the future, they're fine with them utilizing it for goals. So working with Director Lemke, we're going to allow them to put their goals in. It really comes down to a slab for their tee box and the actual goal. It's not a major improvement, but again, it's property that we own, so we're going to let them use it. So the disc golf group should also have another little bit of enjoyable, playable area there when we're done. One more cool thing here is the Convent Park property, which we have not tackled as a park commission yet for naming or what we're going to do next. We were able to partner, I actually go to the class tomorrow, with the UWSP Forest Recreation and Planning class. So what we're going to do is allow some of their students to look at the site, offer some of their thoughts as they're kind of learning about park planning and forestry and forest recreation. And ultimately those thoughts and ideas, kind of similar to almost what Emerson Park had done back then, can come to this commission as we start to tackle that. What are we going to name it? What do we want to do there in the future? So unique opportunity. The county also is going to take place with the county park system for I'm going to say this wrong, Steinhagen, I think, is that correct? On Bentley Road. They're going to have the class do that too. So both directors are going over, and we're going to meet with the class a couple times over the semester and kind of get some cool ideas. Great collaboration with the university. Costs us nothing. Certainly we'll get some unique ideas of what we can possibly do out there. Some of the early feedback we're going to talk about is preservation of, some of the history of the site. What do we do with the preservation of the grotto or the monument in the middle after the 5 years expires? How do we fix some of the snow issues, preserve the trees? So I think there'll be some cool things that come out of that, and they initiated contact with us, so that process will start tomorrow. So other than that, great time of the year. We're about to hit the ground running. If this weather stays nice, certainly we'll get into more project-basis stuff here as we start to head towards the end of the year. So
Great.
That's all I have for director's report.
It's a lot. Any questions for Dan? All right, if there's no questions.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by, we should just make this a standing thing for you. Matt Disher's going to ask us to adjourn. And is there a second? Second by Glodowski. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, have a good night, everybody. See you in March.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.